Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first 2024 episode of Voices of CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association's podcast featuring conversations with industry leaders, sponsored by Old Republic Surety. I'm your host, Sal Marino, CFMA's Director of Communications and an Assistant Editor for CFMA Building Profits magazine. This month, I am pleased to welcome Billy Robinson to the podcast. Billy, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. For those out there who don't know who you are, why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the leader of the firm's construction practice at Brown Edwards and Company. So I lead a team of about 75 people, and I spend the majority of my time, most of my time, working with construction contractors specifically, and of course partners and others in my practice that do that. Spend a lot of time doing consulting for clients on like mergers and acquisitions, cost analysis. Are they making money? Why are they making money? Are they not? Why are they not? What are good jobs? What are bad jobs? Just all kinds of things, and just the random questions you get from clients that are completely out of 500 acres away somewhere. Yeah, I find myself often saying, well, I'm not an attorney, and some things I'm happy to answer, some things just not in my bailiwick. So it's fun. I really enjoy it. I love the client service aspect of what I do. I love the fact to be able to help somebody, and the team we have here is just exceptional. Just an exceptional team here at the firm.
That's awesome. So how long have you been doing this?
So I have been at Brown Edwards and Company, the firm I'm at now, for almost 21 years. This year in June. I worked at a small firm a couple years before that, just a two-partner firm. Actually interned when I was in college there. But I've been with Brown Edwards pretty much my entire career. I've been in 3 different markets with the firm. I was in the Roanoke, Virginia market for about 8 years, and then I was in the Harrisonburg area, Shenandoah Valley living for about 8 years, and then moved to actually East Tennessee in 2018, and so have been there now. But my clients are all over. They span Virginia, North Carolina, a few in West, not much, but a few. We have a big practice, but a couple in West Virginia, and then some in primarily East Tennessee. So I spend a lot of time on the road.
Yeah, I bet. Was this always what you wanted to do?
So, interestingly enough, not really. So, I grew up blue collar. My dad was a coal miner, and so did underground coal mining. I grew up in an area that was pretty economically depressed if coal mining wasn't thriving. And so I had 2 rules growing up. One, I was first generation college student. I had to go to college per my dad. And second, I had to move away from the coalfield area, just because of the economy, and just it's just it's a tough place to be when your livelihood is around one. So anyway, long story short, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer first, and then worked with some lawyers, and no offense to lawyers, but decided it wasn't my thing. uh, no lawyers on here listening to this, hopefully by such topic, but just really found a love. Took an accounting class in college and loved it, and decided, well, I could be a CPA, and that took about 3 years less of school and money and all that to be a CPA at the time, and so pursued that. And then somewhere along the way, I started out my career kind of doing governments, local governments, most of my life, and then doing construction kind of part time, and then some point a number of years ago that started switching, and I started doing more construction, and then eventually became the opportunity to lead the practice for the firm. I've been doing that for about 8 years now, and I love it. I love the clients I deal with. So I think growing up in a blue collar family, mining is different than construction, but it's not that much different, if that makes sense. So being able to work with companies that have blue collar workers, they're working hard, they're putting in a good day's work, they're, have good work ethic, they're they're caring for their families, and these construction companies create that opportunity for people. So it's just an honor to be able to serve them, really. I explained it to somebody. It's just, I don't know. I click with those people better than I do the larger, it's just been my forte anyway. And I'm just really, and a lot of times the construction owners we deal with and the people we deal with, one, they definitely all have an appreciation for blue collar workers.
Right.
But two, many of them were self-built themselves, no college degree, no anything. And so it's just a cool experience and I like it can be challenging at times, but I like actually the aspect of dealing with family businesses. It can be very emotional and difficult, but very rewarding if you find the right family business set up all at the same time. So sometimes I feel like I spend more time as a counselor than I do as a CPA.
Well, CPA, counselor, aspirations to be an attorney. I assume that you probably, when you get those out of left field questions, with the aspirations to be a lawyer, maybe you try to answer them.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think as I've gotten older, and if construction has taught me anything, it's that to be as risk adverse as possible.
Right.
And so just trying to stay out of getting sued is kind of the smart answer there, Sal. In my experience so far, when the attorneys are involved, it's not a fun experience so far. And I've had have to deal with a few over the years for sure. One of the things our firm did before I ever came a part of the firm is decided to specialize and to build specialties of things like construction. And I really enjoy working with attorneys and others who really, sureties, et cetera, who really know construction. And, they're experts, they're very focused in what they do. And so that's a really cool experience. You can learn so much from people like that. So that was probably the best advice I ever got out of college. My very first supervisor told me to go be an expert in something. You will be, if you can make yourself an expert in something, not lots of things, but in something, it'll be valuable. And that's proven true, at least in my career.
That's great. That's great advice. So how did you happen upon CFMA?
So CFMA, the predecessor to my leadership, was a guy by the name of Mike Wade, who really was the father of our construction practice back in the early 90s, and really trained me in terms of how to deal with construction contractors, et cetera, and where to meet people and where to get education. And so he was involved in CFMA. The chapters in Virginia was a little bit inactive for a little while. They're more active now. But really what kind of hit it off for CFMA for me and what sold me on CFMA was actually going to a national conference. And I'll tell you why. I get lots of training. We have to get so many hours of CPE a year and whatever. And, I get lots of trainings and how to do an audit and how to do, how to meet a particular financial accounting standard requirement or tax requirement or whatever it is. But at CFMA, I felt like the education that I was getting and the classes that I was getting like were real things I could take back to my clients and actually help them in running their business. And so that was a lot different than the education I was getting from other places, and why I've been such a staunch supporter of CFMA, because, and I tell my clients and others, like, there is no better place for your employees to be educated on the business of construction and construction accounting. And it is unique and it is different.
Right.
And CFMA really, they grasp that educational concept, I think, as being a priority. I've been members of lots of organizations, AGC and different organizations. And I'm not saying they're not valuable, but I think that education and what CFMA brings to the table and their focus is a huge benefit to the membership. And so that's kind of what got my first conference, I think, was in Chicago. So that was super cool. And then ended up going to San Antonio and think Phoenix. I missed Miami and Atlanta. Of course, was in Denver last year, and very blessed this year to actually was notified. I'm actually made the speaker agenda for the Texas conference. So I'm very, very excited about that. I've spoken at a couple of regional CFMA events and stuff. And so that's been fun. I really enjoy public speaking. I do that quite a bit, part of my job. So
Well, that's fantastic. So everybody who is going to CFMA's 2024 annual conference in Grapevine, Texas, May 18th to the 22nd, can see you there. What's your session title?
the top 10 mistakes made by contractors.
Very nice. Okay.
That I see, just kind of big picture stuff and what you can do about it, and when you're dealing with those situations. So just trying to keep it, high level but informative. Actually, the CFMA Southeastern region asked me to speak, and they actually had a list of topics, and that was one of their topics, and I selected it, and wasn't my idea. So it was fun to really sit and think about, like, what are some of the stupidest things you've seen over the years? Family has a whole slide. trying to how to what are the things that we encounter? Cash flow, over investment in equipment, that kind of thing. So yeah, super excited and honored to be able to participate.
Well, we are honored to have you. And registration opens this week, so everybody could head over to conference.cfma.org and you can put your information in and be notified as soon as registration opens, and you'll be able to see Billy speak there. You are also a CCIFP, right?
I am. Yes, I am a CCIFP. Interestingly, our firm has a long history with the CCIFP program. The guy I mentioned earlier, Mike Wade, actually, we had, I want to say, 7 or 8 CCIFPs almost from the very beginning of the program. We actually paid, he saw that as a real distinction difference between us and our competitors, and really hyped that program. And so we actually flew a proctor in, and they studied and did a whole thing. So now we are, I think we have 12 on staff in our firm, which ranks, we're just a regional firm. We practice, but I mean, we don't go to California or Washington all that often, truthfully. But we're very honored. We're actually in the top 5. We're ranked. There's some more firms, but top 5 of the number of CCIFPs on staff in the country. So all the other firms are national firms. I would consider them national firms, and we're very honored. That's something. And we have 3-ish that are currently working on the requirements to meet the education and experience requirements, and then ready to take the test. And so I'm very excited about that. I love that. So I think that certificate, and it's a really great. The truth of the matter is, for us, it's a great marketing certification. But for those that are out in industry, I highly suggest people to get it. And the biggest reason is it makes you more marketable. It makes you more valuable to your company. If you were if this is a long-term career and this is where you're going to be forever, it makes you more valuable to them. And I think ultimately, if you decide that's not the place for you, it makes you more marketable to others, and more valuable. So it is really, I tell folks, it's an investment in yourself. And I actually find it, I believe it would be easier to pass it if you were in the business instead of being a CPA that's a consultant to the business. Because there's lots of things I had to study that, I don't deal with HR issues very much. I don't deal with contractual language issues very often. So it was cool to expand your horizon with that too, and to get that knowledge base. And I think the other great thing that has happened is the combination of the CCIFP and CFMA is a powerhouse move. I'm really a big fan and supporter of that, bringing that under the CFMA umbrella, making that real part of that organization. It makes a lot of sense. And I've kind of been through it and I've seen the CCIFP program really take off. I feel under the CFMA leadership, there's way more people taking the certifications now. There's way more, and I think the branding and the recognition and marketing that CFMA does to provide the certification. So yeah, if anybody's listening to this, I'm a big fan, big fan, big fan. And what's really cool to me is more and more. I think at first you had a lot of CPA firms who did it because of the marketing aspect of it. Again, it's a distinguishment point for us. But what is really cool is that those lists that come out, only about what I look at, 25, 30%, maybe no more than 40 on any given list are CPA firm employees, but instead are people in the industry working for companies. And so I find that is the game changer, I think, for CCIFP. I think it is a contractor-led organization, and CPA firms are associate members. So we should have more certifications in the industry than in the CPA firm world. So it's really cool just to see people doing that, and it's cool to see employers. Contractors are notoriously tight on overhead, notoriously tight, and so I think it's really cool to see companies invest in their employees and see that as this is a betterment for them, and it's a betterment for us. And I mean, I will tell you, studying is no joke. Like it's a real, you got to spend some time and effort. And you certainly walk away with a better knowledge base after passing the certification than you came into it with. So I don't want people to think it's just letters after a name. Although I will tell you, CPA stands, in my opinion, for can't pass again. So I wouldn't want to take that CCIFP exam today.
Well, it's like they say, the longer you're away from studying and test preparation, the harder it is to get back into it. But I feel like once you finally take the exam and pass and get the CCIFP designation, it must be, such an accomplishment. Especially like you said, investing in yourself. It's really great.
If a dumb coal miner's son from Southwest Virginia can pass it, I'm confident in most people listening to this podcast. And so,
well, thank you. Now we have a new quote for marketing the CCIFP exam. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Right, tagline. Yep. So it's but just a super cool. It's just a really good. Educational force. But yeah, it is. I think people do have a mindset of, well, I don't ever want to take a test exam. I wouldn't look at it at that. I would look at it as really expanding your knowledge base for your career. And you just happen to take a test at the end to indicate that you got that knowledge, and you can speak to it fluently.
Right. So we've talked about work, we've talked about studying, education. What do you do to relax? What's your go-to?
Well, that's a great question because I'm not very good at it. I am a little bit, I think sometimes my own worst enemy. I struggle with relaxing, but when I do, I have two boys, two sons. I have a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I am a single father, so I'm divorced. And so I have them every other week. So the weeks that I'm with them, I'm doing, during school, we're doing, figuring out homework and cooking dinner and laundry and all those things. And then, of course, doing the job. So not a ton of time for leisure activity there. And then the weeks that I'm not, I actually travel a fair amount for my job, visiting with different offices, et cetera. So, but I really love to travel. I really love to vacation and go different places. It's a lot of fun. I like to boat, really into boating, and enjoy just getting out on the lake and hanging out and floating in a cove somewhere like that. I used to ride motorcycles. I still have one. Not ridden too much in the last couple years, just with work commitments and what have you. And to be honest with you, the last time I rode it, the ride, I saw a guy on a motorcycle laying down over a hill, and I can't quite get that that image out of my head. So I've kind of kept it parked since then, if you want to know the truth. Wasn't a friend or anything. So
Right.
and I
Wow.
think he was okay, but I do enjoy that. At the current point in time, I'm just really um, just kind of focused on kids and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But mostly travel. We like going to my son's like going to UT volunteer games, so basketball games particularly. So we've done some of that and trout just take them different places on break, etc. So I'm not a real exciting life, really.
Well, I don't know. I think that sounds like a very exciting life. So you talked a little bit earlier about advice you'd received. Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody who is starting out in the industry now?
Yeah. I think the big thing in my mind is the biggest thing that's helped me in my career is really just finding a mentor. And that's one of the things I actually find in construction companies is the people are very personable, and they work well together usually. And so I think the key thing for most people is to find somebody you admire, and look up to, and that is willing to spend some time and investment in you as a person. And that can take a little while to find, quite frankly, to find the right person. And it doesn't even have to be in the company you work with. It can just be someone else that you know in the industry or whatever, but someone who knows the industry that can kind of show you the ropes and give you some pointers along the way. I think obviously getting involved in CFMA, particularly if you do not have a construction background, is huge because I will say the accounting, at least in the accounting side of things, it's a fair amount different. It's not rocket science because I can do it, but it is different enough that you're not going to understand the concepts without some education on how things work. And so I think just get educated on what you do. Um, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid if you screw up or don't know something to I think that's one of the things that people, younger associates, I think sometimes we have that work for our firm, and they come in and they're like, we expect them to be perfect, and the reality of it is no, we really don't. We expect to have to be able to train you and help you and to make you better, and that's part of our jobs and our responsibility to you as our team members. And so don't be afraid to say the things you don't know, because at that point somebody will stop, hopefully somebody will stop and take the time to teach those to you and what that means. So um, find something you love too. I think a passion. Find something that really. I think there's a difference between a job and a career, and I think that's where people have to decide what it is that they want out of life. And there's not a wrong answer to that. There's lots of people who have jobs and they do their jobs and they go home and they have other interests and raise their families and what have you. And if that's your path, that's okay. But if it's a career and you want to grow and build and advance, et cetera, find something that you're passionate about and that you're going to excel at. Because if you like it, you're going to enjoy it. And don't be afraid to try. I've seen, interestingly enough, over the years, accounting people become different things, or project managers, or maybe they know something in accounting, but they, at some point they take over very different roles in their organizations. The nice thing about, I think, having a accounting brain, so to speak, is it allows you to think multidimensionally. And so I think that level of thinking is beneficial to other parts of the organization. I always encourage accounting really should be a part of operations, not just a reporting tool to those in management, but really a function of, are these jobs working? Do we know what's working? And being able to have more one-on-one communication with the team members and stuff. I think for accounting people, if you get to know the jobs better and the work better and the people performing those jobs better, I think you're going to be better at your job. And I think the people in those organizations are going to respect you more for that. For kind of trying, I tell folks sometimes digging deeper is just the right answer.
Right. Well, a lot of great advice. Billy, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up this episode?
No, I don't think so. I've really enjoyed our time together.
Well, no, thank you so much for talking with me. And I thought it was a great interview, and I appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Yes, Al, absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity and always enjoy the opportunity to interact with CFMA and look forward to seeing you at the conference in May.
Yes, same. And I look forward to your session. And thank you all for joining me on another episode of Voices of CFMA, sponsored by Old Republic Surety. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it on social media and tell your friends about it. And if you're interested in learning more about the Construction Financial Management Association, check out cfma.org. Once again, I'm your host, Sal Marino, and I'll see everyone back here next month. Thanks.